Okay, so good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the next of our PA Forum Lunch and Learn interviews. We are delighted today to be joined by the West Midlands PA Awards and PA Forum brand new headline sponsor, and that is Chris Pardo from PropRec Executive Search. Just to give you a little bit of background, as you know, many of us, the PA Forum is a community organisation. We've been running for 6 years. Most of our events and everything that we do is because of the partnerships that we create with our partners and sponsors. And Chris was kindly introduced to me by one of our committee members who she'd been working very closely with Chris on onboarding a HR director for an IT technology business. And so it was instant for me that I needed to pick up the phone, get in touch with him straight away. And that was a fantastic opportunity for me to be able to be introduced by him through a massive recommendation of one of the members within our network. So, and we've also just had in the chat box as we come in, Dog Dad, as it says
yes.
on your screen, Chris. We're absolutely loving that bit of tech that you've got on your screen there. Welcome. It's wonderful to welcome you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody.
Thanks so much, Chris. So I think what we'll do is kick off, because I think everybody would love to know. I think in the world of PAs and EAs, you know, we were talking about this before we came on. It can be quite overwhelming when you are looking for, or when there's a member of the board or an executive team leader that needs to be, you know, well placed within the business. And so I think a lot of people on here will be thinking, well, where do you even start with that? So take us back, Chris, for your background and how did you get into executive search?
Yeah, okay, great. So I actually started my recruitment life in 2002. Fresh out of university, I was supposed to be a stockbroker, and then 9/11 happened and they killed all the graduate recruitment in London. So I was fishing around trying to find a job, and I just went to a local recruitment company and they said, well, why don't you go and do 6 months in a recruitment agency? You might like it, you might not, but it'll give you a bit of cash and sort of tie you over. And I started out doing contract recruitment, which was very fast paced. So it's very similar to stockbrokering. It was, you get a requirement in, you do a very quick turnaround on it. And that's how back in the day, contract recruitment worked. It was lots on the phones, lots of noise, lots of buzz around. And then worked across multiple disciplines, really, from IT, finance, marketing, and worked my way up as a consultant. Never looked back, actually, and really do enjoy it. And then I set up PropRec about 6 years ago. Primarily, we initially focused on property and construction recruitment, which is where the name came from, because it was short for property recruitment. And for a lot of the organisations we dealt with, the property element of it was actually quite small. And we did a lot of their head office and back office type of stuff. So similar type of roles, from HR managers, HR directors, marketing, finance, IT, supply chain, logistics, etc. And so it's always the thing we did in property and construction. And then sort of last year, I looked at how we worked, how we operated, and wanted to do more on the exec search side. So there's a couple of things really which we've done over the last 2 or 3 years, which has helped us get to that stage. It's been a 3-year process to structure our company to really work in such a way with our clients where we were able to do 2 things. One, scale quickly, and the problem with the recruitment is you might get lots of jobs one week and not many the following week, so you have to work out how you operate with that. And secondly, with clients, a lot of their frustrations, I think, is when someone hands their notice in, then the clock is ticking in getting someone in to replace them. And of course, you've got candidates' notice periods and things like that. So we initially created 2 offshore teams. We had one in India and one in the Philippines. And over the last 3 years, we've streamlined those. And now we've got a team of 8 purely in the Philippines. And what they work on is what we call a 24/5 resource model. So when I leave for the day, I set them up at midnight UK time. What they then do is they kick and they start working for us. They're obviously not phoning candidates at midnight, even they want jobs. Probably wouldn't be very popular if we did. But they do everything in relation to research and data. So when we take an assignment on, obviously there's a number of things that we have to do. We have to benchmark to make sure the organisation is paying the right type of salary for the marketplace. We need to be able to market map to see where those candidates are, look at competitors, do lots of analysis. So the research and data team enable us as a business to turn around time very quickly. But in addition to that, they enable our clients to have a whole heap of data which they won't necessarily normally get access to. So recently we've been doing an attrition report for a client where they were concerned that they were having very high attrition rates in the organisation and lots of staff turnover. So what our team abroad did was not only did we look at their attrition over the last 3 months, and we identified areas of their company where they're certainly at risk of losing lots of people. We didn't say Joe Bloggs in finance is going, but what we said was that there's probably, breach from confidentiality there. But what enabled us to do was saying, you've got 4 or 5 people in your team of 30 in finance who may be looking at other opportunities. So maybe go and put your arm around them, find out what's gone on and things like that. So that's what the offshore team do. So it gives us this ability to partner with our clients, not just around finding them people, but actually being a strategic partner with them so we can help them with future planning as well. We can help them with succession planning. Benchmarking is always a key one for salaries, so you're paying the right salaries for your members of staff. It's been quite interesting recently that we've just taken on an assignment where the current incumbent has been there 15 years. They were 35% down on what the industry was paying for that job at the moment. And the reason why is because fair play to them, they've been rewarded in terms of they've been there a long time, obviously like the company, but when you change jobs, you get a much bigger increase than an annual salary increase, which you get, you see. So that was quite an eye-opener for them. I think they were quite shocked. But it's all that data which gives us the ability to, when we speak with our clients, it's not just about finding them people now, it's about how we can help them with their business resourcing needs going forward. So it's about striking a relationship with them. And of course, obviously, the PA is very integral to that. So.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so clever. When we went for lunch the other day and you were telling me about it, I was like, oh my God, how does this work?
It's not been without its headaches. It's
24 hours of like continual research.
Yeah. 5 days a week, might add. Yeah, we don't let them work the weekends, albeit they would like to. But it's been great for us as a business because it means then a couple of things. One, when we are working on assignments, we can turn it around very quickly. And 2, it helps us in terms of our own planning internally as well, because if we're working with specific firms and we know that they're potentially got issues in areas, then we can actually do a lot of that data gathering for them, which helps them potentially save staff as well. As soon as someone hands their notice in, whilst you can counter offer, psychologically they're moving on. You know, the foot's already out the door. So the more we can help organisations in terms of where the potential hotspots are, so you don't get to that stage, the better, really.
Yeah, I think it sounds like you work really consultatively with them, which is great because it's just having that confidant, that somebody you can pick up the phone and talk to and really get eyes all over the different parts of the business. I mean, during the pandemic, did you see much movement across or as we're coming out of the pandemic? Because I mean, every time you open LinkedIn, people are recruiting left, right, and centre, and there just is not enough people out there at the moment to fill the roles that we're recruiting for. I mean, I've always been a very junior level manager, so you know, there's always quite an abundance of roles for the ones that I always look for. But you know, when you're at that level, or you know, if you're supporting one of the most senior leaders in business, how have you kind of seen that landscape shaped over the past couple of weeks or months?
I think what's probably happened, the big thing around the pandemic in particular was anyone who had a thought of moving jobs didn't, because it doesn't matter what level you're at. It's the old adage of last in, first out. If they're going to make redundancies, whether it's, you know, from the post room all the way up to the board, the problem is that if you are last in the organisation, it's very easy to get rid of you. See, so I think what we saw initially was people just weren't moving at all, and then what we've probably experienced over the last, let's say, 6 to 9 months is this built-up pressure in terms of all of a sudden now people have come out the other end with COVID and gone, great. now I'm going to move on, you see. And this is why we're seeing so many vacancies. So it's a bit like the housing bubble, isn't it? There's huge amounts of demand all of a sudden. And that's the same in recruitment as well, at all levels. And I think probably where, notwithstanding some of the lower level roles we lost to Brexit, and then COVID hits as well. So, you know, hospitality, Dan, how much of a struggle it's been to find staff there. And of course, you try and promote from within, but then you still got to backfill what you're seeing. It's that those lower level roles where organisations have really struggled to get the staff and the talent. And that goes all the way up the food chain then. So it's a very busy time. Like you is, and the interesting part as well is what we're seeing is when we're speaking with candidates in particular, it doesn't matter what level they're at, unless we've only caught them at the start of an exec search process, so they're not actively looking, you generally find lots of candidates are in process for a number of things. So then because it's then a candidate driven market, it's really important that whoever you're working with, whether it's an agency or you're doing it yourself directly, as a business, you really have to go and sell yourselves. It wasn't like that 5 years ago. There was companies just would go and hire and they'd have the pick of candidates, and now it's the other way around. It's, you know, the candidates have got the pick of the organisations and the jobs they want to go and do. So I would see probably, I think we'll have this another to the end of the year, and hopefully it might level off. We don't know.
I had a fantastic conversation the other day with one of our members, and I came off the call and I was absolutely buzzing because she said, I've got a second interview today. I said, have you? She said, yeah, I'm interviewing the business. I said, what do you mean? And she said, I'm interviewing them to make sure that it will be the right move for me. And I was like, oh my God, drop the microphone. That brilliant. Is absolutely brilliant. I was like, she said, they've already offered me the contract. She said, but I want to interview the company to make sure that this move, where I've been working for so many years, is going to be the right move for me. And I was like, I literally was flabbergasted, like my jaw dropped to the ground. I was like, wow, this is fantastic. That's amazing. And
people should do more of it as well. It's you know, it's that area of, it's your career. And I hear so many horror stories. We have so many people who come to me, even at the real top level, where they've joined a company and they've completely missold it in terms of what the job is.
Yeah.
So the more you can do that, and the more it's about, well, I'm going to interview them about why I should work, the more you can find those things out.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting you said that, Chris, because we are going to be hosting another session with you in June, where again we spoke about behavioural types and about looking at different behaviours within an interview process. And I, you know, when we discussed it, I said, how do we know that an organisation is not selling you the dream, and then when you get there, it's absolutely awful? And that's happened to me before. I've gone to businesses and thought, hang on a minute, this is not what we said on the tin. This is not what my job description is. This is not the ethos and the environment and the culture and things that people want to create. So that'll be really interesting to pick that up with you in June as well.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic.
So let's say, so at the moment, I think, you know, COVID has given people long-term kind of plans in terms of people thinking, what's my exit strategy for the business? How many years am I going to be in this business for anymore? What's my potentially early retirement plans? Is this really the sector that I want to work in? Is this really kind of the business that I want to be working with? And obviously, you know, you've got the executive assistants, personal assistants, whichever business support role they're in. And the boss walks through the door and says, you know, I'm thinking 3 months, 6 months time, I'm going. I can imagine from our members' perspective, it just, if you've got a great relationship with your boss, which most of them do, it just fills you with absolute dread. So where if they're there and that person says that to them, what can they do? Like how can you potentially support them?
So I think there's two things that people think of when they, my boss is leaving, is one, am I going to be made redundant? Because if they're bringing in a new exec, are they going to bring that PA with them or EA with them? That's always one area, and one of those things comes to mind. And I think then the other area as well is that sometimes when individuals come in, they do a complete restructure, and there's an element of, we'll just have all the EAs in the pot and we'll have this pool and things like that. So what I've noticed, and I think working with the level of people we've worked with, over the years, that the people and EAs and PAs in the industry understand the DNA of that organization. And I think touch on this a bit more depth. So I've got a big hang up about cultural fit. Everyone recruits on cultural fits. And it's been a very generic term where it's a bit of a one size all fits approach for what we should hire people on. But for me, culture is a specific to a department, a team, an office. It's a group of people which make that culture up. So if you imagine you've got a real outbound telesales team in an organization versus their internal accounts audit team, the cultures of those are probably very different in terms of the way they operate and the way they work. So to hire across cultural fit as an organization, I think is the wrong thing to do. And where I'm particularly keen, and I've been banging the drum for the last 12 months about, is understanding the organization's DNA. Okay. So the DNA, which runs through that organization specifically to how that business should operate, the values it works with, and that's where people should hire against. Yeah. So you need to really take the values, maybe you pick 3 or 4 or even 5 areas you want to focus on. So for example, when I'm hiring people to work for me, our number one ethos is all around customer service. Yeah. We're on Trustpilot, and every time someone gets engaged with us, we send them a link to go and leave a Trustpilot review, whether they've got the job or not. But as long as they've engaged with us in the process, we'll send them a link across, because that is a really good barometer for me about how my staff are working in relation to the levels of customer services they're giving you. So, and that's both clients and candidates. So whatever your DNA is of the organization, that's what you need to recruit on. And I think for a PA and an EA in particular, you understand that. I mean, we sat on the Lifetime Achievement Awards, and the first award we did, there was, I think it was everyone over, was it 25 years in the industry?
Yeah.
And some people have been at the same, yeah. And some people have been at the same organization for 35, 40 years. They completely understand what the DNA of that culture and that organization is, and they'll understand the cultural differences between departments and teams. So I would say, as a PA and EA, whatever you do, don't panic, because it can be a very good thing. The fact that you've got that knowledge in turn, you can't buy that. You can't bring that in from the outside world, and that is integral. And there's been lots of studies out there where if organizations recruit based upon what their DNA is, and they have lots of input into that, their attrition rate is so much better. They lose less people. Yeah. It's not just about recruiting on a job spec or a person spec or what qualifications they've had or, this, that, and the other. So that's the sort of key area, I think. And also, don't forget, as an individual who, I'm going to say this, this shouldn't come wrong. I like the term PA and EA, but it's completely opened my eyes over the last 2 weeks of interviewing people. It's a really funny term for the job you do. I sat there on both of the panels going, I thought PA was diary management. I'm not going to lie to you. I thought it was a diary management job. Type some stuff up, do the diary management, maybe book a bit of travel. I've been absolutely blown away with the sheer breadth and depth of experience that PAs and EAs have. It's strategic business advice, it's project management, it's being a confidant. It's incredible. And so, again, as an individual, if someone new comes in, they're not going to want to lose you. They may deploy you to another part of the business. Great. Equally, if you've got that and you're working with someone who's on the board, they may want to take you as well. So if anyone's thinking, okay, we're going through a restructure, I'm worried about this, that, and the other, don't. Because firstly, I think everyone I've met in this forum, they definitely would want to hold on to you anyway. But also, I think when they understand the depth of what you do as an individual for the business, your value comes out in spades then. So.
Yeah. And I love that, Chris. I mean, just for the purpose of people watching, just in case, Chris, as part of our headline sponsorship, we invite our headline sponsors to join us for some judging as part of the awards. And I know some of our finalists are on the call today, which is amazing, and committee members. So it's lovely to see you. Lots of smiles and congratulations. But Chris was very much part of that team. And, you know, we were attracted originally towards Chris and what he can do, because it was a very, very different. We've traditionally, and we always have, and we still work with recruitment agencies that specialize in business support roles across all different spectrums and levels. But Chris really hadn't really focused on that role and what it was about, and he was looking at more of the executive level and supporting those. And so it's amazing to hear how it's opened up your eyes, Chris, and you've seen just all of the different types of transferable skills that everybody has within our network, and how those skills can be used to better the business in just such a fantastic way. To the point where you're actually recruiting your PA. He will be starting with you very soon, and you said something quite poignant to me when we got onto the call today. So can you share that with us?
Yeah, so a lady called Rebecca, and she wants to become a PA, but I've actually told her now, after doing all this work with the PA forum and interviews, that she's printed a contract out. So can you leave the job title blank, because I want to call it something else, because she's not from the industry. Her view is the PAs, the diary management, the typing, and all the rest of it, you see. So I said, look, I'm going to put a different job title on this, because you're going to be doing so much more than that. And I said, in the peer group you'll meet at events and things like that, when you get to speak to them, you'll see just literally how much they do, which doesn't involve Outlook calendars. So.
Exactly. And you know, even with the calendar work, you know, it's about controlling that calendar and making sure that that executive is getting the very best for the business by you know, managing their time really well. And that's not just their work time necessarily sometimes, but also their health and wellness time and break times, which we knew, you know, we've discussed this so many times. It is the most varied role I think I've ever come across. And me coming into this profession, having not been in that role before, I have learned so much.
Yeah, me too.
It completely changes your just even when I'm working every day, I think to myself, oh, hang on, that's really good. I should be doing that really. And it really fills you with it. And we love it when, you know, Julie's on the call today, when we read all of these nominations and read through all of the things that people have done and achieved. We're absolutely gobsmacked, because you sit there and you think, oh my God, that's incredible. Well, we can take, can we do that? What can we do with that, with our everyday roles? And can we implement some of the things that they've done? So it's truly, truly inspiring. And obviously we very much welcome, sorry, what's your PA's name?
Rebecca.
We were very much welcoming Rebecca when she comes to join us. So thanks so much for that, Chris. So could you share with us, obviously I'm conscious about, you know, not sharing company names, etc., things like that, but there was a very real example about how you've just worked very, very closely with one of our members to implement a people director, HR director into a business. Could you share that with us, if that's okay?
Yeah, in terms of the process.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So one of the things which we've been able to do with the offshore team, like I said, is turn around search lists and things like that very quickly. So the problem that a lot of organizations have when they go and hire someone they need whatever it may be, a CFO or a CPO, etc. And in this particular case, in HR, they've got some preconceived ideas about what they want the person to do, as opposed to what actually should be the objectives of the role. So the way we generally work is, the first thing we will do is set up what we call a search initiation call. So this is us taking a top-down approach from the organization of exactly what it is they do, what they're looking to achieve, where they see this role fit in. We've obviously talked about the DNA already. And then looking at everything from a job description, the specific department they'll be in, the person specification, and then you'll obviously get into the bits about logistics and package details and stuff like that. So our initial meeting with the chief exec. Actually, was a meeting as opposed to a call. It's we pioneered the search initiation call in COVID, but has got the acronym SICK, so I might change it to something else. It's a bit like Trotter's Independent Traders. So it's one of those. So we will do this initial meet, if you like, where basically what we're working with is finding out the bigger picture of the organisation and where this role sits in. And in this particular example, we sat down with the chief exec. He printed off his org chart for that HR department. There's a couple of things which came out of it, actually. One, the previous incumbent looked after quite a few other things, not HR, which we didn't want that person to focus on. And two, they were quite lightweight as an organisation compared to the department overall. So we looked at other organisations of similar size, looked at their organisation structure, and there was 2 or 3 odds light. So we'll sit down, we'll go through that with them. We'll get an idea then of what they're looking for from a salary point of view and a package point of view. And then that goes to our data and research team. And so what they will then do is completely benchmark the salary. Yeah. They'll also look at the number of candidates who are available, and we'll produce what we call a data set. So this is the salary ranges, typical notice periods, and the potential number of candidates, which on first draft would fit the bill. If we're only coming up with 4, because it's a real niche role, then we have to go back and say, look, guys, you're trying to buy everything here, where actually you don't need half of these things. Let's take some of this off. So for the HR director role, it was quite an easy search and quite an easy data exercise for us, because we knew the turnover, we knew the size of the company, we knew the number of employees, the remit they're going to have from offices, etc. So that was quite easy then to go and generate organisations which has something similar, and then we market mapped all those candidates in that area. And there was twofold as well. There was slightly bigger organisations where they may have been head of HR, which would have been good for a step up. And there was then similar organisations in terms of size where it was taking the HR director out and moving them on. 2 different searches, because then you're looking at people's motivations. Obviously, if someone's the head of HR, to go to a HR director, or as they call it, a chief people officer, that's a step up. So that's quite an easy thing to identify. Someone's currently a chief people officer, you have to dig in a little bit more about what their motivations are to move on to different areas. So once we've got that report, we will then go back to the client and say, great, this is what we've got, this is the data, are you happy with these figures? And as it happened, because this role was quite new to them, because it was combined with other roles in the past, they were quite open on the salary. We didn't say, look, you don't need to pay over the odds for this, but where we benchmarked, it worked really well, because we knew then that we'd had a very good success rate of not only attracting the right candidates in terms of experience, but also we can pick them from organisations which, from a potential, as we perceive it, DNA point of view, they would fit as well. Because again, that's where it comes down to. So we worked with that side of it, and normally we. It was a bit longer on this one because it happened over Christmas. We started this one in December, but normally when we've got that data back and we've got the client's agreements on salary package, etc., we will produce a long list, and the long list takes us 5 working days. So, and what we'll do is with day 0, we'll set that up, and on day 5, we will then send a long list to the client. This is really quite important, because there may be organisations where your key suppliers or key customers, where there's members of staff, and contractually or even morally, you don't want to be going stealing their HR directors. Yeah, so you have to be a bit careful. So we would send that across to them to say, right, is there anyone on here or any organisations which we should step away from? You see, and particularly for that role, it's an IT organisation. The chief exec did not want anyone from IT. He said, wow. I want someone from out of industry, got fresh ideas. We need to look at strategically how we operate HR, not just from a people acquisition point of view in terms of talent acquisition, but succession planning, comp and benefits, and all these type of things, you see. So his remit was great, because he said, I don't want anyone from IT. So when we did the long list, we said, well, we'll take the IT companies out then, because we know they're not going to start, and things like that. So that's normally after day 5. As soon as we've got the go ahead on that, it then takes us 8 days to get the shortlist compiled. And what we mean by that is then we book a call on the 8th day with the exec who's hiring, because obviously get the PA involved as well, to go through our shortlist, and we'll present those candidates. So I did that with the chief exec. Trying to think, it's about the second week of December, I think it was.
And do you find that a lot of the organisations that you work with will get the PA or EA involved in that part of the process then, when they're looking at the shortlist and kind of who's there?
Yeah, so generally what happens is we will, and in this particular example, we went presented the shortlist to the chief exec, and then he ran it past his PA to say, can you have a look at these? Because the chief exec are very busy and they'll do a quick, oh yeah, looks good, great, thank you very much. Whereas the PA will actually read it. and generally what happens is the PA or the A reads it, comes back to us and asks questions, and then goes and tells their exec, you see. So generally that's the way it works. But we generally find is when we presented the candidate, we're doing the high level piece. So they took this company from X to Y, they achieved this, and this. So it's a bit more high bullet pointed, if you want to call it that, whereas the EA and the PA will read detail and go, oh, that's interesting, because that's what we're looking to do, yeah? And that's the other thing as well, is because you are the eyes and the ears of the organisation, you may know in 6 months' time you're putting in a new payroll system or something. So the fact that someone has got that previous experience from the example of this, a HR perspective, is really invaluable. But sometimes we don't get that on the search initiation call from the chief exec, and we certainly don't get it when we present the shortlist.
I think it's interesting that. I think it's interesting though, because like you say, if you can see something like a new payroll system is coming up in 6 months' time, from the EA's perspective or the PA's perspective, you're thinking, if this person can't do that, this is probably going to land on my desk, and it's probably a project that I'm going to have to do. So it's incredibly important that that was, for example, if that was something that was looked at, it's incredibly important and within their best interest to make sure that that person can do that, because there's so many people when they leave a business, the EA or PA then is just given a majority or a big chunk of their work, and it could be something that they've not been tasked to do with before, which goes back to what we were talking about with the awards, and
exactly
working on these different projects.
Exactly, and I'd say the PA and EA is so vital for any exec search process, because you are the internal project manager for this whole process in terms of the way we work. So if you look at, for example, basic things, job description, person specifications, those type of things obviously come in from that. We've talked about the culture, we've talked about the DNA of the organisation. Then we get into who's involved in the process. Yeah, so in terms of, is it just going to be the exec, or we're going to bring other people in? There's logistics around that. But the key thing which worked incredibly well with the chief people officer role was the whole onboarding piece. Most people, senior people, they're on 3 or 6 months notice, and from the day you get the offer to 3 months time is an awful long time when they're serving notice, their current boss is in their ear every day, I'll stay, and if you not feel that as a candidate you're being loved from your new organisation, it's very easy to forget about it, and it's very easy to get your head turned, and time kills deals at the end of the day. So people don't start, and I have it so many times. Clients come to us and say, well, we're supposed to have a candidate start on Monday, they haven't turned up, can you find us someone? And I said, well, when did you hire them? It's like, well, we hired them 3 months ago. And I said, well, when did you speak to them last? They were like, 3 months ago. I was like, so you just left them 3 months, you've got a contract back, and you've not even had a conversation with them. So what was really important for this one in onboarding was around the induction, setting the objectives when they start, setting all the meetings up, doing the first sort of month plan. And that is so key to this. So it's not just about printing the CVs, getting some time in the diary for the exec to interview. It's been part of that process, and it's everything then in terms of onboarding, induction, KPIs, etc. And even where it's like maybe even producing the contracts. Sensitive hires, it's not, if you're recruiting, like for example, this one was a chief people officer, that's a sensitive hire. And of course, you can't go to the current HR director to produce that contract, you see. So the PA and EA have to do that. And I think as well, what we generally find is that when an EA is involved, the process just works so much better. But I don't mean involved in just the admin part. It is about making sure that they're there for the process, get them started. And I think as well, the key thing is they've also then, the person who starts, have got someone to turn to. They can't always knock on the chief exec's door or the chief financial officer's door because they might not be there, they might be in meetings. Whereas they can say to the AA, I'm struggling with this, can you help me? And they can probably solve a lot of the problems as well, you see. So.
Fantastic. And I think, was that your motivation really to kind of get involved with us then, obviously, when we had that?
It opened my eyes to it because, again, like I said, it wasn't just diary management. And it was like, this is amazing. Actually, you've got someone here who understands the company, who's very loyal to the company, but also knows how everything fits together. And to be fair, that's probably more important to me than hearing some of the words out of the exec. The exec's got the strategic vision. I need the nuts and bolts, yeah? That's what it comes down to. And the EA will know that if we are headhunting from a competitor, and actually one competitor, they've had people in the past who haven't worked out, they'll know that information. So again, for our search, that's invaluable. So.
Yeah, absolutely. We just in the chat box we do indeed have a unique view across the whole of our organisations. We've had the EAPA maintains the relationship with the candidate through that period. And yeah, at our conference this year, we are covering something which is all about transferable skills. And whilst we're not trying to encourage people to leave the profession and go into another role, what we're just trying to demonstrate is that throughout that career journey that there is opportunities to use the transferable skills as an executive personal assistant or business support representative and be able to use those skills to go on to doing something where you can think, this is my area here, I'm absolutely loving this, and this is something that I really want to do. And so it's I think we're at a massive turning point in the profession. I think it's, again, massive change is coming. And so I can feel that there's been a lot of nervousness recently with regards to execs and that senior leadership team and what's happening. And as the business is growing, there's more recruitment, there's more people to look after, there's more roles that are needed. There's, companies are amalgamating into each other and buying different companies and bringing them all together. It's really overwhelming with a lot of stuff that's going on at the moment. So I really wanted to bring you onto the call today, Chris, just to be able to introduce you to our members and so that they can obviously know exactly kind of, I loved your ethos and how you work. And I think, like I said, having an example with one of our members itself is really good. But if you could leave kind of one piece of advice as we kind of move away today, what would you say to everybody?
I think if you are going to engage in, you need to be a part of the process to hire senior talent and you're involved in that, and whether it's us or any search partner, you're going to have a really close relationship with that company. So a couple of things which I always say to organizations, it doesn't matter who they pick, but the key thing that they need to be looking at is pick your partner carefully in terms of your search partner. People buy from people at the end of the day, so find out who's actually going to be doing the recruitment for you. I've heard some horror stories of fresh-faced graduates, 3 months out of university, who've been trying to recruit a chief finance officer. And as soon as the finance officer comes on the phone, says, hold on a minute, you don't know anything about finance or anything, and you're trying to represent your company's brand. So that's very important to do. Make sure commercially it works for you as well. I think a lot of organizations, I had one client, for example, who used a search firm and they pushed the upper end of the salary band. So they got their candidate an extra £30,000, which meant for them, they got another £6,000 on a fee. So they deliberately inflated all the prices and the salaries to make sure they got someone who was going to earn them more money. So things like that. So pick your partner carefully. Make sure that you discuss with them the market strategy, how you're going to go to market, and work collaboratively with them. And communication is key. So it's not just about placeholder meetings. It's not just about discussing the target list. It's about that partnership. We have a thing called what we call a client charter, which is what we will do for you and when we will do it, and also what we expect you to do for us. And it's clear from the outset, and it enables us then to work specifically. There's no hiccups. There's no, well, you said this, that, and the other. It's still there in black and white. And probably my final point is enjoy the process. It should be fun. It should be enjoyable. It shouldn't be something, it can be exciting for the company. They're bringing new people on board. But from an individual point of view as well, is don't get hung up on change if it is going to happen, because you are integral to these organizations. And actually, if they don't see that, then there's lots of organizations out there who will see that. So it's, I certainly think, and I have lots of people who, they hear that the company's been bought, it's been sold, and they go into this panic mode. And really, you don't need to. Certainly not with the level you operate at, the skills you have, and certainly not at the moment, because we're in such a candidate short market that most people have snapped their hands off for you.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Chris. It's great words of wisdom to leave us with today. And obviously, if we are out and about at the events, Chris is going to be coming along to some of our events, and he'd love to be able to have the chance to talk to you and share his jaw-dropping moments about all the different things that you do, which is amazing. But thank you so much for joining us today, Chris. Thanks so much to everybody on the call. We'll send out the recording and I'll copy Chris in. And obviously, if you've got any questions, then please, he'd love to be able to have a chat with you and answer those. But thanks ever so much for joining us today, everyone. Take care.
Thanks ever so much, guys.
Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.